for the particular general election come next year. To help us understand this particular crossroad and this particular conversation, especially on the eve of the elections, I'm joined to my left by Ms. Ruth Sachindi, and to my extreme left, Dr. Patricia Chan Okiria. Ladies, many thanks for making time to speak to us. Let me start with you, Ms. Ruth. Just help me understand. I think the Constitution is a very complex a document. I think document is even an understatement. If you are to explain to me, I think Article 1, let's start there. Article 1 vis-a-vis the mandate of an ordinary citizen, where do we find ourselves leading up to the election? What are our obligations, should I even put it plainly?
Thank you. Article 1 of the Constitution is very important because it says power belongs to the people. And that is Article 1.1, but then later on 1, 2, and 3 indicates that people have to elect their leaders. So the power of the people can be derived when they determine how they're going to be led and who leads them. That is really a summary for the ordinary person on how they understand, because many people talk about power belongs to the people, but it is related to issues of governance and determining who their leaders are going to be or who their leaders are. And as we get closer to the elections, it's important for every Ugandan to know that the right to vote is key, because it's ingrained into various articles in the Constitution, particularly Article 1, Article 38, and Article 58. That comes out to say that provide the right to vote. But when we say power belongs to the people, since you're dwelling on Article 1, it's very important. It's very important for the ordinary person, because in all democracies, for us to have a democracy, it has to be with citizens who participate, not dormant or observers or observing citizens. They have to have that power, they have to know their rights and be able to enforce this right through voting. And that is the summary of Article 1 of the Constitution.
Dr. Chan, let me bring you in here. When you hear what Ms. Sachindi is talking about, it kind of resonates with for the people, of the people, by the people, sort of a declaration of a particular country on the eve of their independence. Give me a sense of, at this particular juncture, yes, the power belongs to the people, but are ordinary Ugandans actually cognizant of whatever might that they might have when it comes to the ballot box?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, viewers. When we talk about power belonging to the people, actually the Constitution says all power belongs to the people. And the ordinary citizen out there knows that power belongs to him. How does he know? We see this when it comes to elections. When it comes to elections, they are able to come out and participate. But there are also those who do not know that the power in which they hold as citizens. So they need a lot more sensitization on their responsibilities when it comes to elections. They need to know how to exercise that right, because at the end of the day, it is the ordinary person who should take the decision on who they want to choose as their leader, as their representation. Otherwise, the leaders hold those offices on behalf of the people, because they're the people's voice out there. So I think it's very important that the people out there get to know that the power belongs to them, and they're supposed to exercise this right when it comes to election. And now that reminds us of our responsibility as the Uganda Human Rights Commission. The Uganda Human Rights Commission holds a very big stake when it comes to issues of elections, because when it comes to elections, there is a strong link, first of all, between elections and human rights. And what is this link? Elections facilitates the realization of the rights of the people to participate when it comes to elections, to participate in the affairs of government, to participate in making decisions that affect them as the ordinary people. So I think it's important for us to bring out that link. And like Director Ruth has said, there are those constitutional provisions which stipulate these responsibilities out clearly, which provide for these rights out clearly. Like within Article 38, as she said, the people need to come out to exercise their responsibility as citizens to vote when it comes to elections. Thank you.
Director Ruth, let's talk about maybe the issue of some of the mandates that the Uganda Human Rights Commission has. Definitely one massive one is the fact that you, I would say, single-handedly hold the banner when it comes to educating many of us Ugandans on some of these obligations that we do have, or even our rights. And just give me a sense of how the Uganda Human Rights Commission manages to achieve this particular feat in a country of north of 40 million people. How do you pull this, how do you play that particular role with the civil education? Okay.
When you look at the commission, Uganda Human Rights Commission, Article 52, if you just come from 51, 52, and 53, it has a lot of powers. It has a lot of powers, many of the powers that are bigger than any other institution in Uganda. And these powers come, it has functions and powers, and there are very many, including the quasi-judicial power, including committing persons for contempt. But when we go back to civic education that you have raised, the Constitution requires the Commission to sensitize Ugandans about their civic obligations, civic duties, and their rights. Now, there is a difference between the Electoral Commission, which is supposed to teach people about election, you know, how to vote. Now, the Uganda Human Rights Commission should sensitize persons on why they should vote. And I think that is why we're here, and we're in many districts in Uganda. Now, it also requires Ugandans, or the Commission, to teach Ugandans how to defend the Constitution. And now that is really, really huge. So in other words, we are telling, we are required to sensitize Ugandans around this time on on what they should consider before they vote for someone. Okay? What constitutes a free and fair election? Why is it important for every Ugandan to vote? Is it important for democracy? Is it important for constitutionalism? Is it important for our country when we're determining development, particularly when we are looking at the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals? So that is why the Commission is at the forefront around this time, to sensitize persons on their civic obligations, to sensitize Ugandans on civic education, to tell Ugandans why they should vote, and what is the criteria of a good leader. So we are doing this in very many districts. We have offices in 10 regional offices and 10 field offices, plus 12 field offices, plus the head office. So altogether we have 23 offices around the country. But other than that, we have other mandates, including a tribunal where we hear cases, and commissioners, members of the commission preside over these tribunals. We have the mandate of monitoring the human rights situation in the country, including monitoring and observing the elections. Are they free and fair? If we're using a scientific election, is there equitable access to the media? Because the candidates are going to be using the media. If we are looking at campaigns, are people abiding by the rules of EC? Are they abiding by the law? If we are looking at issues of compliance with COVID-19, are we ensuring that as a country we don't put people in harm's way? And so it is really broad. And the fact that human rights is everything, you find that we are everywhere. And we have staff members who are out in the field on a daily basis doing just this. And then we also have a complaints system where we receive and investigate complaints of human rights violations, including issues that may come up when it comes to elections and trying to vote, where persons may be hindered or limited in realizing this right.
It's well, you've actually summed up quite a few of the things that I plan to bring up in the next few minutes. But Dr. Achan, let me just bring you in here. Oftentimes we've seen the electorate being, I don't want to use the word gullible, but being blindsided into many of our elections being popularity contests. If someone has maybe a song here and there, they come up there and they sell that to the electorate. And in my view, that would just complicate your work, because the Uganda Human Rights Commission is trying to look out for the broader picture. As the electorate, why should you vote, and ultimately, what are the reasons that someone is giving you to earn your vote? With all these regional offices that Ms. Sechindia has mentioned, how hard is it for the Commission to find that ground? Of course, there's a constitutional mandate vis-a-vis the Uganda Human Rights Commission, but also try to spread this gospel of look out for more as an electorate, as opposed to someone has a song.
Thank you very much. I think it's very important for us to, first of all, draw the line between the whole need to create awareness out there. And this awareness, by the way, can be done through the songs we're talking about, because even the Commission has used these songs. The Commission has come up with songs to create awareness. What is your responsibility as a voter? Our civic education vans have gone around to the different districts, passing on the message about elections and the responsibility of the voters out there. But like you have said, there are people who compose songs. If the songs are educative, if the songs can pass a message out there, if the songs can remind the ordinary people about their responsibilities, we embrace that, we support it wholeheartedly. But if the songs are discouraging people, if the songs are pulling away people, if the songs are causing conflict among the people, we highly would discourage that. And like we said in the beginning, when we talk about elections, elections has got a strong linkage with human rights, and it has got a number of rights it touches on. For instance, we talked about the right to participate in elections, freedom of expression, freedom of movement. So people can come out and express themselves in songs. As long as the songs are educative, as long as the songs are meaningful, we would highly support that. So in view of this, I think that elections, if they are well managed, if they are well coordinated, it has the potential of promoting realization of rights, provided that the rights are brought out clearly through the messages, through the songs. And then you talked about our offices. We are spread out all over the country, like Director Ruth has said, and we use those offices to reach out to the people at the grassroots. We have not mentioned about the field offices. The field offices also play a very significant role by reaching out to people where our offices are not located. So like we have in Kalangala field offices, we have in Lira, we have in different parts of the country like Kasese, Bundibujo, and so on. So we try as much to reach out to the people using the civic education approach, using the awareness creation. And like in times such as this is when Uganda Human Rights Commission actually comes out at the forefront. And this is when we come out and partner with our colleagues at the Electoral Commission to pass on the message. Voter education, civic education. What are the responsibilities of citizens? So that they don't hold back and say, well, we are waiting for these messages to come. But the citizens out there need to know that they have got responsibilities and obligations as citizens. First of all, to participate meaningfully. Now we're talking about free and fair elections, but we also add the word safe. The standard operation procedures and guidelines of Ministry of Health has got to be taken into consideration. How are we going to let the people know how they're supposed to participate meaningfully in a safe way, in a free and fair manner? So I think that is our responsibility as the Commission now.
It's a very tough time indeed to be having an election, and this of course leads me to I mean, I'm very sure the two of you understand the Constitution 50, 100, a million times better than I do. Article 38 of the Constitution, and I bring this in because of what you've alluded to, Dr. Achan, which is, yes, safe. you know, it's one thing to have an election, but in this particular juncture that we find ourselves in, it has to be safe. And this leaves me wondering if we are looking at, let's say, a scientific campaign, how wouldn't that undo part of the progress that we'd actually achieved vis-a-vis human rights in, what, the past 15 years? Maybe you could just allude to that. Let me start with you, Director Ruth, then maybe Dr. Achan, you'll also touch on the same.
Okay. You're asking whether us having a scientific election would undo
the scientific campaign, because on one end you're looking at, yes, you're supposed to, well, have rights to participate, and you know, but then on the other hand, the scientific campaigns are doing away with that, and almost everything is supposed to be done online. Wouldn't that undo some of the progress that has been achieved in the past? Okay,
we have to go back to what an election is and what the Constitution provides. If you look at Article 58 and the role of the Electoral Commission, you realize that the Constitution requires that Uganda holds an election every 5 years.
Yes.
Okay? So for us to go against that would require an amendment of the Constitution. And the Electoral Commission is also mandated to organize an election after a now I've forgotten the days, the exact number of days, but that is when you sum it up, it is 5 years. And it does not say how. Okay, it says free, fair, or you could add credible election, but it has to hold an election.
Yes.
Because there is a right to vote. There is a right for persons to determine who's going to lead them. There's a right for persons to participate in elective politics. And elections is part of democracy. We can't talk about the rule of law and democracy without the right to election or the right to vote and be voted for in office. And since elections are not an event, or a particular date in February or January.
It's a process.
It is a process. The Electoral Commission has to start that process. Now, the question that the members of Parliament grappled with was within the context of COVID-19, can Ugandans have a free, fair, and credible election? And that is what they debated on. And we said, and that's when they agreed and said, we can use media platform and have a hybrid election. The question then is, how do we ensure that this hybrid election is free, fair,
and equitable for all the candidates?
Equitable and credible for all the candidates. Can all the candidates afford media platforms that are very expensive? Can all candidates, how are we going to work around this? And that is what Electoral Commission has been trying to work. But Electoral Commission cannot work alone. It has to work with all other government agencies. Ministry of Health has to deal with the health aspect. ICT has to deal with technology and innovation. Ministry of Education has to come in as well. The Electoral Commission has to address issues of the vote and how we're going to vote on that D-Day. The gender, that is Ministry of Gender has to deal with the persons with disabilities, women and all that. It is a process and it involves so many stakeholders. Okay, so as government, they have to work as a team to make sure that this hybrid election that has never been done before is credible and that it is realized. Now, if we wanted to stay the election and postpone it, it would have called for an amendment of the Constitution.
What about a state of emergency?
And Uganda had not declared a state of emergency because if we did then, then the president would be working and reporting to Parliament, and Parliament would be guiding on the process. But as a country, we did not declare a state of emergency so that we can stay the election. So without that state of emergency, without amending the Constitution, we have as a country to proceed with the electoral process as required by the Constitution. Remember, the power belongs to the people. And I am going back to what Dr. Patricia said. So if we have the power that belongs to the people and we bring in Article 1 of the Constitution, and it's not in error that they made that as Article 1 of the Constitution, the supreme law of the land. That means you, wherever you are, It's very important to know that you are very powerful. You hold the key to determining the governance of this country with your vote. You hold the key in determining the development of this country with your vote. You hold the key in determining how you're going to be governed and who governs you in this country by having that vote and casting that vote. Now, it doesn't mean that every time you have someone who you support, whose values, because when we are voting, people should vote on principle. It should not be about how they look and how rich they are or how much they have given you. We should vote as a country based on principles and values and the issues that we believe will take our country forward. Yeah. How safe will this person make our country? Will my child be able to go to a safe school and a better school? Will I be able to have better medication? Those should be the principles and issues that for which we as Ugandans should focus when we are voting. So we as a commission, we are out there telling people, vote on principle. Not why we should vote. It's important that you have this right to vote. How do you implement this? What are the values that this person brings on the table? And that is why media comes in. What do the candidates tell the people? Yeah. What are you going to use to do for the people? Are you telling lies? Are you insulting them? Are you just putting a pretty face or a handsome face out there? Are they voting for the right issues? Are you paying them off? And that is where we go to monetization of elections, yes, where you're seeing people being paid 2,000, 5,000, 1,000, even 500 coins. Then you lose. When you do that and you accept that coin, you lose the credibility to question and hold this person accountable.
It's tragic indeed. Let me bring you in, Dr. Achan. The Director Ruth has kind of touched on many of these facets, but this is something that she's actually alluded to it, how some members of Parliament were grappling, should I say, with this particular issue. If there's no state of emergency and then you're saying that we're going to have a scientific campaign and then have ultimately a hybrid election, would that then be a credible election? She's alluded to much of that. Maybe you could also just sum that up.
Well, I think when you look at the issue of the state of emergency, our country has not declared that state of emergency because it is not necessary. One, we had guidelines, we had the Ministry of Health regulations and laws, we had directives from His Excellency, supported by those guidelines and statutory instruments, and that is how the state managed the COVID situation, and that is how we have been managing. So I don't think it was right to come up with a state of emergency because, like Director Ruth has said, it would open up some other Pandora of issues. But going back to the Commission, as Uganda Human Rights Commission, we believe that these elections, if they are well organized, it should not lead the country to a situation where they will call for emergency. It should not lead to bloodshed. That's why we are advocating for peace. That's why we are advocating for security. That's why we are advocating that people should come up and participate as citizens, because power belongs to them as the people. And for this reason, as Uganda Human Rights Commission, we have positioned ourselves to effectively contribute to that process. How have we done that? We have prepared our teams, our staff, to manage. The staff are equipped with knowledge and skills. They have previously been trained. We are going to prepare for more training so that they can come up and participate in these elections, so that they can be observers, national observers, so that they can come up with credible reports about the elections. And in preparation, this is like an early warning mechanism for the Commission, because we do not want to see people's rights violated out there. We do not want to see people suffering out there. We do not want to see bloodshed. And we're like, how can we prepare our people to participate peacefully, to participate meaningfully in these elections? So we're going to ensure that human rights are respected and promoted, that even after elections, we still have life. We can still enjoy peace and democracy in this country, because there is life after elections. But what we need to do very much now is to go in for these early warning mechanisms. How have we positioned ourselves as UHRC to ensure that people's rights are not violated out there? Our staff, like we have said, are equipped. Our offices are opened. We will be registering complaints. We will be monitoring what is happening in the countryside. We will be taking action. In case we see there is a violation somewhere, we swing into action and ensure that the responsible officers are alerted, and we make sure things are handled amicably, and these complaints also settled amicably quite well.
Right, we're going to go for a break in just a few, but before we do that, I think Director Ruth, you could just touch this for me. Article 59 of the Constitution, right to vote. It is the duty of every citizen of Uganda under 18 years of age or above to register as a voter for public elections and referenda. Vis-a-vis the SOPs that we definitely have to observe in the situation that we find ourselves in, do you get the sense that there is maybe a need to rethink this particular line vis-a-vis the Electoral Commission in order to find the middle ground, or is it something that we can actually work with going forward? Elections, yes, but we need to observe the SOPs. How ready do you feel, how ready is the Electoral Commission vis-a-vis observing SOPs? Do you get the sense that they are ready in the interactions that you've had with them in the past?
Yeah, last week we had a meeting with the Electoral Commission, and we had a lengthy interaction. We had so many questions, and since we've been monitoring the situation around the country, and we have written an advisory to them advising on how certain things should be done, we had a litany of issues to raise with them. We were very impressed by the time we left. Looks like they have a hang of it. They have taken into consideration all the SOPs, and they are working with different ministries to ensure that people are safe during the voting and that there is free and fair election. So for now, right now, I can say Electoral Commission really looks like they're really prepared and they're ready. And I think they also have the resources. They didn't complain about that. So let us see as we monitor. Let's see how they are moving on. But then now that you mentioned Article 59 and the fact that everyone has a right to vote, we go back to Article 1. The two are in tandem because you are realizing that Article 51 gives the right to vote, and Article 1 gives them the power. And so that means the right to vote is not only a right, but it also gives it gives them the power. So that is why voting is critical for every person. And that is why we say bad leaders are elected by good people who do not vote. It's important for every Ugandan to be responsible and vote on principle for the persons who can best lead this country to ensure that we are safe and that there is development in this country.
And definitely voting tantamounts to the power that you've alluded to. Ladies, let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more on the same. We'll be back in just a few minutes as we continue this particular conversation around your constitutional rights as we do gear up for the 2021 election.
Slide your way and tame your thirst with the new Reham Cola. You can sense taste, and when you choose the best, regardless of the party, mood, or moment, Reham Cola is tasty. Feel the waves of Reham Cola slide down your throat with loads of refreshment, immense goodness, double refreshment, all cooked up in one.
Reham Cola now comes in an exotic look and delightful, refreshing, genuine taste.
Reham Cola. Taste it. Believe it.
A product of the Reham family.
Despite Uganda being highly dependent on climate-sensitive sectors such as agriculture, water, environment, and tourism, the country still remains one of the countries with limited capacity for climate resilience in Africa. It's against this background that Accord, with funding from Care International in Uganda, is organizing a half-day national dialogue under the theme Enhancing Climate Resilience through Integrating Climate Change in Planning, Programming, and Budgeting. This dialogue will be live on NTV and online on Thursday, the 15th of October, 2020 at 9 a.m. Follow the discussion on #ClimateResilience.
Twenty-eight minutes to 5 p.m. A very good afternoon yet again if you're just joining us. My name is Arnold Segawa. You're tuned into this particular talk show in conjunction with the Uganda Human Rights Commission, as we do touch all matters constitution and, of course, leading up to the 2021 general election. What are your roles? What are your rights, should I even say? I'm joined by, to my left, Ms. Ruth Sechindi, and to my extreme left, Dr. Patricia Chan Okiria, to just help us break ground on all these matters. Ladies, before we left off, I think let me start with you, Dr. Chan. The issue of the tribunal, how would you explain it to us in a very blunt language? The role of the Uganda Human Rights Commission, or even where the tribunal meets the Uganda Human Rights Commission?
Thank you very much. The Uganda Human Rights Commission does have quasi-judicial powers, and we operate the Human Rights Tribunal. This is where we sit and preside over human rights complaints, cases that are brought to the Commission. First of all, when cases are filed at the Commission, it takes a process. They are investigated, and then it gets to a level where it is set down for hearing, and then summons are sent out, and we invite the complainants, the respondents, and witnesses. They appear before the tribunal, just like the ordinary court procedure, and then they get to give testimony before the tribunal, and then the tribunal decides. We weigh evidence and decide and come up with a decision on whether or not to have this person compensated. We have to first of all look at whether or not there was a human rights violation. And how do we do this? We rely first of all on the investigations report, and then also we look at the law. What does the law say about this particular violation? And then in the process of weighing evidence, we come up with a decision on whether or not to have this complainant compensated. Yeah. We have got issues of people who come and tell us lies also. So in the process of weighing evidence, we actually get to establish that these are lies. There are some people who think, well, because the Uganda Human Rights Commission is there and it can compensate, they cook up stories and come. But we are able to investigate and find out and ascertain whether or not they are lies or they are based on true facts. So we rely heavily on facts, and then we do due diligence through the investigations and then through our own findings, and we come up with a decision. So that is how the tribunal operates. Yes, but we encourage people out there, those whose rights have been violated, to come to the Commission. As long as it's a human rights violation, we shall take action. We shall ensure that you get redress for any violation. And we have got offices all over the country. We have got regional offices. You can approach any of those regional offices and we'll be able to assist you. Yes.
So it's, wow, it's quite fascinating. It's like the more you talk about the role and the mandate to put it very plainly, of the Uganda Human Rights Commission, the more you actually learn and you turn a lot of pages. Just last Friday we had Director Kamadi, who alluded to yet another issue that you've touched on, Director Ruth, which is the issue around monitoring. He actually mentioned that there might be the biggest election monitor in the country. I think last election, they deployed close to, 400 people, if I'm not mistaken. Could you touch that for me? What are some of the issues that, well, besides the violations, but is there a particular systematic approach if there's irregularities are seen per se? What then is the way forward for the Uganda Human Rights Commission, of course, in conjunction with the mandate that you hold?
Okay, when we monitoring the elections, for us, we started in 2016. Immediately after the announcement of the president and the then candidates, we started the process of monitoring the next election, looking at how people were acting up. We record and follow up every statement, what is the media saying, what is social media saying, because all these issues translate into the coming election. And right now we are at the peak. And the process of monitoring is not only in January or February, because elections will start, or voting will start in the late stages or the late month of January next year to early Feb. The dates are yet to come, okay? But in the process, because we've talked about the fact that it's an event, officers in the different regional offices and field offices are tracking and monitoring what is being said on the social media.
That it's a process, yeah.
Yes, who's doing what. And what happens is that we establish a situation room that we are currently establishing. And that situation room, we work with police, we work with the Electoral Commission, we work with the Ministry of Gender and other actors and civil society organization, so that there's a referral pathway of issues that are rising. We have, it's called hotspot mapping, where we identify based on what is happening that this is likely to be a hotspot, and then we follow and monitor, engage leaders, religious leaders, cultural leaders, political parties, and the actors in those regions to ensure that there is peace. Because elections is very important in any country. But for many people, it's a do or die, and it can spark conflict. In fact, there are many countries out there in the world where elections have sparked of conflict,
Kenya, just a few
including
years ago,
Uganda, because His Excellency has said, I went to the bush because of a stolen election. And so because of that, it's very important that we, as a national human rights institution, the watchdog of the state, are able to an advisor also of the state, we're able to monitor and keep track of issues that are happening. We advise. And so during this process, we're in touch with the Electoral Commission, highlighting areas where we anticipate this could happen, a conflict could arise here. Can you address this? We're in touch with police. This is happening. Can you intervene here? So that there is security, there is human rights observance. Where we notice excesses and abuse, we intervene. We either open up a complaint, and if there is a likely abuse that we anticipate could happen, we involve the leaders and say, this can happen, can you please intervene? That way there's peace. So you may not see us on the streets, but we are, we are in the kitchen preparing and intervening and going here, having non-stop meetings. So right now you find that members of the commission and the staff are always in meetings, discussing this with different actors, with different partners, just to ensure that we have a free, fair, credible, and safe election come 2021.
Definitely. Dr. Echana, I wanted to touch on that too, but also maybe segue into the role of the media, because we saw just a few, not just the situation in Kenya, but across the world, hate speech going around. Now, we do have a regulator, which is the UCC, but social media, not so much regulation there. Someone can go on there and say all sorts of things. How hard does this make your job as the Commission?
Well, as the Commission, we have got a number of issues of concern when it comes to elections. For instance, you've hinted on social media. There are people who abuse social media by sending alarming reports, negative reports, and there are people who are bound to abuse the social media even when it comes to the campaign rallies. Right now, they're supposed to do everything on social media. So we have got issues of concern around irresponsible media reporting and abuse of social media. We have got issues of concern about the use of unnecessary force when it comes to handling the people who have violated other people's rights or the people who have come in conflict with the law and so on. So we have a number of issues of concern. But as the Uganda Human Rights Commission, we are saying the law must be seen to work. People must be brought to book. Those who have violated the rights of others must be brought to book. We should stick to the provisions of the law in every decision we make. So if somebody is going to go out there and publish negative news or information on social media with a view of inciting people, that person can be dealt with within the law. So as Uganda Human Rights Commission, we shall not cover those people up because we want sanity in this country. We want people's rights to be protected and promoted. We want to ensure that people can participate in these elections in a meaningful, peaceful and fair way, and also safe. So when it comes to social media and abuse of social media, we think whoever is responsible for sending negative news, for inciting people, for abusing social media should be dealt with by the law.
But it's interesting you mentioned they should and would actually be brought to book. But some of these people are big shots, you know, like in the government. You see someone wielding an AK-47. How does an ordinary Arnold here handle such a big shot, you know, who has guards and has the right to actually, well, not has the right, but can wield the gun away from his guard, you know?
Well, we have the rule of law. We say law must apply equally, irrespective of whether you are Arnold or you're Dr. Patricia Chan or you're Ruth or irrespective of your status. The law should apply. If I have violated somebody's rights or I'm in breach of the law, I should be dealt with. And we have seen the law actually dealing with some of these people. If you have been reading the news and following, not only in Uganda, but even in other countries as well. Someone who comes up to violate rights of the people, someone who comes up to trample on people's well-being has to be dealt with.
Director Ruth, I want to throw it over to you because I get the sense that your mandate is very, very wide. The elections just make it even wider. But when it comes to our duties of various actors, you know, the state, the politicians, the voters, give me a sense of how all of this fits into one functional machine. Because if we were to look at your mandate as the Uganda Human Rights Commission, I would argue it's extremely wide. How do you bring all these stakeholders together and make sure leading up to the election next year, everything just goes smooth?
The mandate requires, first of all, there's what we call the Paris principles when we look at national human rights institutions. It's a requirement for all states the world over to have institutions like the Uganda Human Rights Commission, and those are called national human rights institutions. They come in different forms and types in different countries. But one of the roles that they're required is to be at the heart of every state. And that's why they're called the watchdog of the state. So they're supposed to work with the executive and yet monitor the executive operations. They're supposed to work with the legislature and look at how they perform and work with the judiciary and then also advise and work with all these institutions. And so as well as civil society and the general public. Now, for all these institutions to operate, despite the wide mandate that they have, they cannot work alone. They work with partners. So you find that many times we work we partner with civil society, we partner with government institutions, and to be able to pull this off. Now, elections is huge. It covers the whole country in a span of a short time. So it's important that all actors come together and work together. And that is why when there's a violation, Electoral Commission, you can report to Electoral Commission, you can report to the Uganda Human Rights Commission, you can report to the judiciary directly, police comes in and sometimes work with other security institutions like UPDF. ESO comes in because now the intelligence is necessary. And so all organs of government are working together. And then because it also has a health component, Ministry of Health also comes together. And for us as the Commission, we play the coordinating function. That is why I talked about the Situation Room. So, and it's not only for elections, for all other thematic areas that we work on, whether it's economic, social and cultural rights, whether it's freedom of expression, because we work on so many things. And that is why we have been trying to broaden our offices and our scope and coverage to be able to reach as many persons as possible. And that's why we have the 23 offices that are around the country. But even that is not sufficient, given the wide mandate. That is why we are saying, can the districts also help us? So that districts establish district, not only district coordinating committees, but also district human rights committees. Those ones will be able to feed within the regional or the field offices and also the regional offices, and then so that every Ugandan, wherever they are, is protected, so that their rights are protected, promoted, and fulfilled. That way, we believe that if human rights are at the forefront, every Ugandan will have a better life, and issues of access to justice will be handled. But going back, and I think because elections are very critical for every Ugandan to know, it's important that we don't abrogate our power to decide our leaders to others. And we have seen many Ugandans sitting back and expecting others to decide for them. And you have heard, I don't know whether, Arnold, you vote, but I know that many educated Ugandans do not vote, particularly those who can watch TV. They expect the person out there to vote. And that is why you see sometimes people in Wakiso and Kampala don't vote. They are busy waiting for other persons to decide the governance of this country. They are busy waiting for other persons to decide the fate of their development, the fate of their children, the fate of their health. And that is why we as a commission are out there saying that don't lose your voice. If you do not vote, you lose your voice to determine who will govern you, how you'll be governed, and you lose the moral authority even to question why certain things are the way they are. I have seen people take to social media and complain and lament, but have you ever taken the time to wake up that morning and go to that polling center and make a decision for you, your children, and your children's children on how this country will be run? Politics determines the food you eat in your house. It determines the education that your children will get. It determines the roles that you will have. Politics determines every part of your life, but many people forget that. It's also very important for persons to know, because they say, my vote does not count. The person that I am supporting does not have the vote. If it is on principle, and you believe that the values that you hold are the same value that this person holds, it's important that you go there and vote for that person, even if you know that you're going to lose. Why? It is your right, it is your voice, and most importantly, when you vote for a certain person, even if they're losing, you send a communication to the winning candidate that there's some value or information that this person has. There's some values he has that I need to pick up to work towards achieving, so that even those who did not vote for me can be able to be covered and their aspirations met.
I definitely hear you there, but I mean, I love that you keep on bringing back, even in the first half, you mentioned this particular aspect of vote on principle. Someone has to stand for something. You don't just go and say, I think you used beauty or how handsome they are, which I subscribe to. Or rich or poor. I subscribe to that school of thought. And it leaves me wondering, in some developed countries, well, not some are even not far ahead of us, they have, let's say, debates where you get to listen to someone, put a point across, or for that matter, say utter nonsense. And that for me would expose some people who go out there and just, they just, like I said earlier, it's a popularity contest. Is it time that maybe the media, in conjunction with the bodies such as the Human Rights Commission, try to move in that direction and make sure that, we get to vote on principle? Because let's face it, we're not allowed to have the campaigns where you could have a field and someone goes out there and has his manifesto read. You're going to rely on social media. The internet penetration of the country is less than 35%. Media houses, we're struggling with radios, we're struggling with TVs.
Yeah.
So how will I know that my LC3 councillor actually has any sense in his head?
Yes.
So is it time for us to actually have some more thought towards having some town halls going forward? Maybe the two of you could touch on this.
Yeah.
For me, I think it is time for UHRC to partner with the media in that area. If the media can partner with the Uganda Human Rights Commission, then we'll be able to sing from the same hymn book and tell the people out there that, hey, if you're a candidate and you're not successful, you can go through the legal channels of redress rather than beginning to flex with your opponents out there. Then leaders are expected to exercise caution and good judgment even when they're making decisions while issuing statements. And who will be able to let people know this? It's the media. If we partner and we sing from the same hymn book, we will be able to let the people out there know exactly what to do when it comes to issues of elections. We'll be able to let the people know about the responsibilities of leaders, and then even the concerned parties will be able to respect their constitutional mandate. First of all, they will be able to know that power belongs to them, and they will be able to respect the institutions that are in place, like the Electoral Commission. The Electoral Commission should be respected as a body that manages elections in this country. The Electoral Commission should be the only institution that should announce the results. But when it comes to elections, like when you reflect back to 2016,
that's always an issue.
You realize there are people who begin announcing results, even when they are not so sure. And that brings a lot of disgruntlements amongst others. Others will want to come up to fight. So the Electoral Commission has from time to time endeavored to issue clarification to the people. They have sent out messages in time. They have prepared the people on the step-by-step procedure on what should be followed when it comes to elections and how voters should conduct themselves. And now hinting on SOPs, there are those health guidelines. So we don't expect people to crowd within the polling stations. When it comes to elections, they are expected to wear their masks and observe the necessary guidelines by the Ministry of Health. And then the media houses should also be on guard against what we had talked about earlier, messages that incite the people. By there, that is where the biggest problem comes from. The moment those messages are out, people begin to get incited and they go out of control. So I think it's important that we partner with the media as Uganda Human Rights Commission, and we do a good job in letting people know about their responsibilities early. They get to know about their rights. We encourage them to come out to vote. We encourage them to respect the teachings and guidelines by the Electoral Commission, and together we will not find any problems when it comes to elections.
Definitely.
Yes.
Director Ruth, partner?
Yeah, I think we need to partner with the media. Dr. Patricia has really said it all. But just to add, the media right now plays a critical role in this hybrid election. There's no candidate who can say they will do away with the media, because that is the only way that, or the only forum through which you're going to inform the people the issue, the values you stand for, and what you intend to do for the people. That way, people, they need to listen to radio, to TV, and determine whether you're a good and credible candidate that they can trust with their vote. So without the media, this election is almost impossible, because that is the forum. So we'll need the Bizinda laws in our villages. We'll need social media, we'll need television, we'll need social media, we'll need radios, and all other media platforms to play a critical role. The question then is, how do we ensure that there is equality and equity in access to these media platforms? Can everyone afford? Can my cousin who is an Essex person who is a farmer, peasant farmer, be able to access Radio West or radio, whatever radio? Can they access it? How much is, if it is, a show is at 2 million shillings, okay, for an hour? Can he afford? Are we, those are some of the issues that the Commission intends to have. We intend to have a discussion with UCC to see how equitable this will be, and how access will be equitable, and how it will be available to all candidates without favor or discrimination. Because in elections there should be equality and non-discrimination. So we don't want to leave out the poor, especially those who are not the incumbent, who may not necessarily have some money. It may be a challenge. So that's a discussion that's one of the discussion we're going to have with UCC to see how equitable it will be. And then there are areas that don't have radio stations at all. They don't have internet coverage. They don't have television coverage. I think Kwen and many other districts in Uganda.
But if I could just,
and so that then the question is, how will we ensure that persons or candidates can pass on the information on what they're going to do for particular persons? So we are still mapping out those areas, also the districts of that cannot access radio or television, so that we know that these are regions at risk or that have challenges. These are challenges, and then we advise on how best we can do particular.
Director Ruth, we're running out of time. Just very briefly on that matter, could you? Aren't we about to have maybe class action suits of sorts when it comes to maybe discrimination vis-a-vis having an election where not everyone has access, widespread access to, let's say, state media or privately owned media, yet you're all running in the same campaign per se?
I will not speak for the action. I know the lawyers out there, but that can be something that they can pick up if indeed it happens. But I think Electoral Commission is trying to work, and they informed us that they've been into having discussions with UCC to see how this can be done. Particularly the fact that some regions cannot have internet access and radio coverage. That still remains a challenge. And the other challenge is privately owned radios, and many of them are owned by politicians.
Yes.
Would you let your opponent then come and access your radio? We're saying yes, you should, and at a subsidized price if possible, so that there is equitable distribution, there is fairness and non-discrimination. There's
been a joke that the incumbents, well, the owners of that particular media house would put you on at 4 a.m. in the morning. But ladies, your last words. We're just about to wind up. Dr. Achan, your last word.
Thank you very much, Arnold. I think it's important that Ugandans, we take caution, especially when it comes to election. Let's look at the peaceful aspect. Let's look at the free and fair aspect. And anybody who is not happy with the outcome, there are legal channels you can follow peacefully without necessarily causing violence out there. Uganda has been through violence before, and we do not want a repeat of that. And it is provided for clearly in the preamble of the Constitution, recalling our previous history. So we are looking at the peaceful and fair elections that will unite Ugandans, and Uganda will continue to exist in a peaceful way. Yes. Thank you.
Dr. Ruth?
For me, my parting word is that your vote is your power, and no Ugandan aged 18 and a citizen of Uganda who is registered should fail to vote, because your vote determines our democracy, your vote determines our governance and the direction that we seek or the country seeks to achieve. So it's important for every person to vote, and we need to ensure that our voting or our elections are free, fair, equitable, and safe. So we should ensure that there is no violence. Let's not act up. Uganda is for us all to stay in, and let's not destabilize our country, because we want to be safe and alive for us to enjoy this country. Thank you.
Many thanks for those words. Allow me to put a pause on this particular one, and thank you very much, ladies. To my left, Director Ruth Sachindi, and to my extreme left, Dr. Patricia Chan Okiria, just walking us through our rights, let alone the obligations as we lead up to the 2021 general election. There are, of course, both of them with the Uganda Human Rights Commission. That's where we leave it for this edition. I'll be back on Friday with some more. It doesn't end here. For me, though, have a good afternoon.